So maybe we can start with your own story, because to all people listening and watching, you, Laura, speak and understand 8 languages. It was cool that when I watched one of your videos when you went over this, it was cool that you brought this out, that the title wasn't "I speak 8 languages," but it was
Yeah.
more so of a I speak and understand 8 languages, and there is a massive difference, right? Um,
Yes, there is. Yeah, but this is also a source of the most negative comments that I get. People get offended that I don't speak 8 languages, but I say, "Hey, it's in the title."
yeah, for sure, because of these, I speak 10 languages, or I learned the language in 7 days videos that people tend to do,
Yeah.
which are so harmful. But yeah, we will dive into all this today. But we can start about your own story as well. Like, how did you arrive to speaking and understanding 8 languages? What's the story, and where did it start?
It started like I cannot take all the credit because it started thanks to my family's passion for travel. And when you live in Central Europe or just in Europe, you have so many opportunities to just go across the border and find people who speak a totally different language. And my family traveled literally everywhere. We spent every summer in a car just traveling, and we had a family in France, we had my parents' friends in Czechia, and we just traveled. And when I was very little, I listened. I listened to the radio when we were traveling, or I listened to adults having conversations in different languages, or I just wanted to meet new friends and make friends when I was traveling and I was a kid and I wanted to do something with myself when my parents were doing something else, or I didn't want to spend all the time with my younger brother, so I just wanted to have someone else to play with. And sometimes I tried to just, use Polish or any amount of English that I spoke at the time to communicate, but I couldn't, and there were these language barriers. But I was a kid, I didn't care, and I just wanted to speak, so I was absorbing everything that I listened to when I was in Czech Republic. In the Czech Republic, many times I picked up just, dziękuję, na zdrowie, or something, which were phrases similar to Polish, and I was like, oh, so you can speak them, like you can say them, speak this language with a different intonation, and this is Czech? That's cool. Of course, I didn't know that Czech was more complicated than that, but I was picking things up, and that's how it all started, with almost every single language except for English, because my parents enrolled me in an English course at my kindergarten, so that was just something that I started learning in a structured way. But every other language, I was just picking it up as I went.
That really resonates with me as well, because what you're saying is that being surrounded by many languages is kind of like a natural thing for you, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that you are per se afraid of.
No, I was a very courageous and adventurous kid. I just wanted to speak to everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And probably, you would agree that for sure that's one of the things that has made me successful with languages, is that I'm
Yeah,
literally...
how many do you speak? 7?
Yeah, I speak and understand 7.
Okay.
Exactly. It's the funniest thing at the moment that we created Speakly to be such a program that we would like to use ourselves to study with, together with the other co-founder. She's a crazy lady. She speaks like 8 languages, I think, and some Asian ones, Japanese and Chinese as well. But we wanted to create something that we would be able to use. But with, like in a story about the shoemaker, we don't arrive to making shoes to ourselves, to use ourselves. Basically, all the time goes into helping others to learn, and then one day we'll arrive to learning with Speakly ourselves as well. But I'm studying Italian with Speakly myself at the moment, and it's
Amazing.
very enjoyable. But yeah, that's probably, you would agree that it's one of the main kind of things, already your disposition, that are you afraid of it, or how do you view a language per se, if you are accustomed to it as a child already, right?
Yes, for sure. Like, had I been a shy child, or had I been, can I say, like, traumatized basically in a school system very early by
Yeah.
the grades and a teacher who shouldn't really be a teacher, had it been my story, I don't think I would be like speaking and understanding these languages, or that I would even become a linguist or a language mentor or a lover of languages. So it all depends on your own attitude, but as you said, like also on what you hear and what other people tell you about learning languages and about languages themselves. Yeah, definitely. I agree. That may hinder your progress or even your entire journey.
Yeah, for sure. You were mentioning something super important that I'm always talking about in our content as well, is that, you know, people don't understand that the whole, you know, learning experience in school, how it has been, and how the, you know, how this all has programmed ourselves to have a certain belief system, right? So you're a linguist as well, and you have, you know, you're highly educated in that field. How do you look at this at the moment? Like now, if you have for yourself a successful language learning strategy, and we will dive into this a little later of what it is and stuff like that, but how do you look back at what language learning was in school? And it actually is today. You know, nothing has changed, right?
No, it hasn't changed a bit. Maybe now because of the pandemic, everything is online, but I think it's even worse because nobody was prepared for it. But just in general, I was so lucky that I had amazing teachers. Like, I have no idea how it happened. I was just surrounded by the best teachers up to a point, because when I entered university, I had the worst French teacher. But I had, for the majority of the time, I had amazing teachers. And as I said, I was curious and I was adventurous and I just wanted to speak. But I was one of a kind, and I was also talented, so I have a very different perspective. But I taught many people, and I know that the schooling system can really, like, how should I put it? It can demonize learning languages, because first of all, you have this classroom environment where you can't help but compare your skills against other people's skills. And if you're just learning something and you're just discovering whether you like something or not, let's say you're learning Russian, because that was my case in middle school. So I was learning Russian for a semester, and I thought that it would be easy because my mother knew Russian and my father knew Russian, and I thought I would be good in Russian. But I couldn't feel that I was so good at it. Like, I didn't grasp it very quickly. It took me a bit of it. Like, it was a challenge for me. But because I kept getting like slightly like good grades, I was okay with that. But the children that were getting like worse grades than me, they started hating Russian and the Russian teacher, who was okay at the time. And I think that when you have this classroom environment and you look at other children or maybe students when you are at university, and you look at each other's skills and you think and you say to yourself, oh my God, I'm so much worse than them, that's the first issue, because the teachers don't really encourage progress, or they don't create, I think for the most part, they don't create a healthy learning environment so that they say, hey, it doesn't matter who speaks better, who speaks worse, we are all here to learn. Instead, they have tests and they have programs that they have to follow, the curriculum. And it's all based on the, like, the teacher has to make progress with the program. And so the learners are there just to catch up with everyone. And if they feel or they see that they are behind everyone else, they will not start liking the language. They will feel like they are horrible at learning languages. They will feel like they are not making progress fast enough. And this is like, I think I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg here, but I think that this is one of the biggest problems, the environment in which we learn, and the fact that we start learning at school, which is basically a competitive environment, and then the teacher sometimes doesn't know how to encourage the positive learning environment. And then there are the methods and the tests, and I could go on forever on this.
For sure. This is a funny thing. I've been in communication with a lot of education ministries in several countries, and what they tell me regarding, you know, why teachers are pacing learners through some curriculum, you know, just, no, we have to be in pace of finalizing this book, this learning manual, for example, then it actually isn't true. Just teachers believe that it's true, but the only thing that is written in national, you know, international and national curriculums is that you need to be on a certain level I imagine, when I'm looking at such an environment like the school environment, then I can only imagine how a scientist, a climate scientist, for example, is watching what's happening in the world at the moment, right? So it's like it's so, it just drives you mad in a way, but this whole mammoth is so big that you don't know where to begin, because it just takes time, which all innovation does, to change it, because there are so many things, right? For example, what we see with Speakly when researching literally thousands of people is that many people who are on upper intermediate levels, they have the speaking block, right? It's a very usual.
Yes.
It's a very usual thing. So now with research, where does it come from? It's literally so visible that it directly comes from the fact that we are graded in school. So
yes, I agree.
So basically, you have to make a choice. Do I make a mistake, which would be a normal thing as a human being in everything, or I won't make the mistake and I won't say anything, which is how we are programmed, which is the craziest thing ever, right? Because like what I usually talk about as an example is people just remembering how did I speak, how did I learn my mother tongue? Was my mother at my bedside every evening being like, this conjugation, well, this goes like that? Or was it more so of a, as you were saying, a healthy environment filled with imitation and language input, right? Just creating the environment that needs these skills. And there are so many things we can go on about, but there is, there are some cool things happening. But in general, in the education systems, the things that are used are literally 100 and 200 years old, right?
Yes, they are. I think that the newest additions to language lessons are like interactive boards or something, but still the methodology is the same.
Exactly. So using a device that is interactive, but the underlying thing is the same, which is funny. Like, we have done research, for example, in such a thing that looking at a random, just a learning manual, let's say Spanish A1 language learning book. So what we see is that there is a consistent rule happening that throughout these learning manuals, there are actually words and sentences that are not needed in this specific level because they are put together as a topic, right? So even on this granular level, these things are not thought out, and it kind of enraged me in a way that how can this be in such a way that we are just spending people's time? But maybe let's dig into your own kind of methodology or how you study languages. So what do you think? What's the number one thing for you? What would you say is the main reason why people fail in learning language?
Okay, so the thing that you already mentioned, being afraid of making mistakes, being afraid of not being perfect, and that applies to many areas. So not having the perfect grammar or not having vocabulary in your inventory that is advanced enough. Or as many people who learn English put it, they are ashamed even of their accent, which is the weirdest thing. I mean, I get it, but your accent doesn't really hinder communication. It's just a part of your learning journey. But I think that this fear of not being perfect and this fear of making mistakes is, I think, the reason why the majority of people fail, because they don't give them the space to make mistakes. They don't allow themselves to make mistakes. Which, by the way, I have a very funny mistake story, which I think can empower some people. Can I share it?
Yeah, sure.
So when I was learning English, I live in London now, but the first time I came here was when I was 14, and we came here and we lived with London families, so native-speaking people. I thought that my English was already advanced enough, and I really wanted to impress the host family with my vocabulary, but I wasn't afraid of making mistakes. So I thought that I would say that I was very, very cold on a field trip because we were traveling around the UK. And I wanted to say that I was so cold that I was shivering, not just shaking, that I was shivering. But when I said that out loud, I said, oh my God, I was so cold, I was shaving. And they were like, what were you doing? Shaving outside? What? And I was so embarrassed at the time, but I still remember this mistake, which is just testament to the fact that you can remember your mistakes and laugh at them, but still they are not they are not the end of the world. Like, I think so many people are afraid of making mistakes because they think that people will remember their mistakes and they will always have their mistakes in their head, their own heads when they speak to them, which is not the case at all. Or they are afraid of making mistakes because they just feel like making mistakes is not what an advanced or even like an intermediate person does. They have to continue, they have to be pristine, they have to make progress all the time, but they don't think that mistakes are the part of the journey, as you said. And I think that that's why many people fail. And one of the, I think the third reason and the last reason that I think is the most important is that people don't see results very quickly. So they learn and they practice some more, and then they feel like they are not able to do anything like say anything, or they are afraid of trying even to speak something, say something. And when they don't see the results as quickly as they wanted to, like you said with the how can I learn Italian in 7 days, they are discouraged and they think that nothing works or that they are not talented enough, and they just disregard it and they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Also, you were talking about a story about an embarrassing situation. It just sparked in me that one of my favorite comedians, Dimitri Martin, once told in an interview that as a psychological kind of fact, we overestimate, as you were saying, we overestimate how important our own actions seem to other people. And in reality, they are so insignificant, even the big ones. And he was telling a story that he went to some major US TV show to have a stand-up routine, and he basically botched it. So he didn't say anything. He just forgot his lines. And it was the first thing, the most important thing. You build up to that as a comedian. It was like a late show or something with Jimmy Fallon or whatever. And then he came off the stage and he thought that, my life is over. Literally, there's nothing to be done, right? And literally 2 weeks later, nobody cared. Just his mother remembered it. Nobody remembered. Everybody goes on with their lives. So it's such a kind of like the whole conversation that we have inside of ourselves being, what does he or she think if I say that, this or that?
They think nothing.
Yeah, literally they have their own things. And that's why you connected to the fact you're not being afraid of the language. It's also a sign of courage that if you have an accent, right? Somebody told me, I remember in one panel, it was some educational panel. I was invited to somebody. After the panel asked me that, Mr. Oyamets, you have a very interesting accent. It's like a mixture of Arabic and French.
Oh, wow.
and I felt super weird and conscious about it. It was like, no, it isn't. Why did you say that? But after that, it was just funny to think about it, that it's just, thank you for saying this, you stranger, because, my mouth has been so primed to speak in 7 languages that it makes a weird French Arabic accent as a result. Then so be it, whatever. So it's a cool thing to embrace this vulnerability, right?
Yes, but you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I know that many learners who come from the traditional schooling system and they learn languages at school, the moment they hear they have a weird or like their national accent, they get inward and they are closed even more. So you have to be really open, not only to comments and feedback, but also to you have to stop taking all of this so seriously. Like, so many people take learning languages and being perfect and speaking so many languages as something that has to be perfect, or that's like something that is so serious that if they fail, that is it. Like, they have their native accent, oh my god, that's the end for me. Like, I will never get that job, I will never go and travel and speak English or French or Italian again because of my accent. when it's like you said, people don't care about what we say, like they don't care about our mistakes, but it's also not so serious. Like nothing in life is so serious, so why would you treat yourself so seriously when it comes to speaking languages?
Basically, you touched upon something very important. I thought that you were saying that people are discouraged because they don't see progress right away, and this really speaks to me, that because what's usually in the learning manuals as well, and it's a crazy fact, by the way, that I've seen so many different papers and research saying that people who want to learn languages, still 90% or more, based in different markets, are choosing to buy a learning manual as the first option. By the way, it's the same thing basically as, if you have a selection between a car, a Volvo, or a horse, you will take, you're in a store and you're like, what is that there? Like, this seems so much slower, and it's 100 years old, I will take that. So it's like such an irrational choice, but 90% of people still do it. So it's relevant to talk about it, of why they are doing this. Obviously, it's some kind of inertia, right, based on what has worked before. MacGyver has always had a mullet, so let's all have mullets, right? It's weird. But at the same time, that's the main reason why people don't feel the progress that, in the language at first, right? Because they are just overthrown with grammar, for example. And, that's one of the things that I usually say as a tip, as a polyglot tip, or to be successful. And I don't know if you agree with this, is that you just avoiding grammar in the beginning as much as possible. I know that you're a perfectionist linguist, that you want to dig into your grammar in the beginning, maybe more so, and maybe it depends on the person as well. But what I've seen based on research is that in the beginning, just to feel these first success states of, I can put together these sentences, and I can say this about myself and so forth, I would be so discouraged if I would just go into the rabbit hole of conjugation, for example. But I remember in university, I went to study languages and linguistics as well, and the first thing in the Spanish class was just a pile of verbs and conjugations just smashed on my table, and I remember feeling discouraged about that. Like, how the hell I'm going to remember all of these things?
And always going back to the back of the book to check the conjugation table, and going back to the beginning and doing the exercises.
For sure. So how do you view that?
I like you said, I am a very much like grammar oriented person, but I am not. I know I'm crazy about that. So let's just not talk about me. When I teach or when I talk to other learners, I do and I say what you just said. It is not important to know every single conjugation for every single verb at the very beginning. You need to know how to say simple things quickly and correctly, and that's it. Whether you do it with this conjugation or that, people will understand you, because what many people don't even realize is that grammar, of course, yes, needs to be, you need to use the correct grammar, but if you don't and you just make a mistake, like a grammatical mistake, but you use a verb that you wanted to use, so you emphasize, like you focus on vocabulary more, then people will understand that you wanted to use the verb play, and whether you said play yesterday or plays yesterday or played yesterday, they will understand that you talked about yesterday and playing, and they will get you, and then you will be able to see that they understood you, and you'll be proud of yourself. But then you can start building on your grammar skills more and more as you go, but at the very beginning, like, you don't need that. You don't need that. Leave that to me, I'll do that. But
for sure, exactly. And it's a nice testament to that people usually want to be perfect like that. But I can say that my French skills are pretty high. I've translated literally like novels from French.
Really?
And when I speak to a Parisian, they will literally switch to English, like literally, because they will have this little nuance of no, he's not from Paris, right? Or he's not from France. Otherwise, this would be a little bit and this shows this shows that how perfect you have to be to sound immaculate, right? It doesn't even happen to be on a C1-2 level, which is like the highest level that a foreigner can achieve, basically. And then, having these situations where somebody's switching language on you and being like, why did you do that, right? So it happens even on this level. So why be afraid of misusing conjugations or misusing declensions? That's the crazy thing. Estonians are so crazy about their language, and they're always saying that, from one hand, Estonians are saying here that why don't more people who live in Estonia speak Estonian? And then on the other hand, we're so proud that it's one of the most difficult languages to learn. Ooh, we're so proud of it. You can't even. We have this head-to-head competition going on with the Finnish and maybe Polish and Lithuanian. Like all those four are just head-to-head race of who is more difficult to learn. And it has 14 declensions, and Finnish language has 15 declensions. So just using them wrong, what the hell happens? Nothing happens. Everybody understands. And it's so kind of liberating to think that. So you speak a lot of languages. What are the benefits of that? Just except having the YouTube video titles of "I speak and understand 8 languages." What have you seen? What have you seen? What are the benefits?
By the way, I never intended for this video to go viral. Like, I literally knew nothing about YouTube when I uploaded this video. So when it went viral, I was not prepared for that.
It has like 1.5 million views or something like that, right?
Yes, it does, it blows my mind to this day. I think that for me, the biggest reward is just seeing people's faces light up when they hear me say something in their language. I worked in an international environment 3 years ago here in London, and I was meeting a lot of international students. And whenever a Greek person came to me and I said, "Oh, kalimera," they were like, "Oh, you speak Greek." And I didn't, but it didn't matter to them because I said something in Greek. The same for Spanish or French or sometimes even Portuguese. Like, I knew random words. And to me, this feeling that they are happy because I said something that spoke to their heart, because I'm of the opinion that when you say something in English, everybody will understand it. But when I say something in Polish to a Polish person, I think that goes directly to the heart. The same for sure. Like a French person speaking to them in French. And so anytime I met someone, I just wanted to say something in their native language, and they immediately just became excited to see me and talk to me, even though we just met. So I think that making friends and just making people feel good whenever they are, that was a university environment, so they were also lost. So that was kind of encouraging to them and helpful that they didn't feel like they were there alone and somebody could understand them. I just love meeting people. So to me, that is the biggest benefit. But of course, I speak English. This is my second language. And the biggest benefit is that I can reach the world. I can speak to people. I can speak to you right now. I can have international students or viewers from all over the world. But even if I didn't have a YouTube channel, I could go anywhere, maybe not anywhere, but I could go to many places and find a job there because my English would be at C1 or at C2 level, and that would be amazing for my career prospects. Also, like living abroad, like I live abroad right now, and if I only could do that, if I spoke better French, maybe I would move to Paris, because I'm kind of, like, I love London, but I don't think I would be able to live in Paris with my current French level. So I think that another benefit would be, like, the ability to live anywhere where they speak this language. And yeah, I think that these are my top 3, like your career or your dream life, or just meeting people who are immediately connecting with you. That is, I love this feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I've lived in many countries as well, and just the country opens up on a whole new level to you if you know the language just a little bit. Just people, the whole culture, everything, right? And how you feel yourself as a person, your own self-value and self-love. It's just different. And
it is,
there's research that shows pretty directly that if people are in extreme situations, like in panic or in extreme joy or something, then they start using their mother tongue, not other languages.
That's true.
Right? So it means that we have such a connection with our mother tongue that is just on a DNA level that you don't have. there are famous memes about this on the internet that actually I'm an adult, but I sound like a 3-year old in English or in French or whatever, and you can't express yourself, right? Even you have to be on such a high level to have the same sense of humor and same pace and all these kinds of things.
But also like feel the same feelings when you say these things in a foreign language. Like I said, if I say something in Polish that is very emotional to me, I will feel all of these emotions. But if I said everything like in English, one-to-one translated it, I would feel them, but they wouldn't be like the same. Like it would be like I was a different person sometimes. So
for sure.
That is, yeah.
And that's actually a funny thing that I've noticed, that if you start speaking a language without even kind of specially learning all this stuff, all the outer stuff changes as well. Just how I speak, the body movements, this the freaking hand movements, just the faces you do. It's so weird. You just go over the border from German to France, and you're like a different person. Like literally, it's like, whoa, what's that? What's this voice? What's this little murmur I'm doing?
Why are my lips rounded? Ooh. Like that all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's also something that really gives value to the existence in general. It's just like, I have all this in me as well. I can be a totally different person if I want to, or whatever. It's just like kind of changing. But by the way, people listening and watching at the moment may be interested. And that's one of the questions I get a lot from learners that people need help with, is how they can improve their pronunciation, because their pronunciation is perfect. Well, it's like, I have a heavy Estonian, French, Arabic, as we already know. So what's up with that? So can you give some pointers to people of how to improve their pronunciation?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, when it comes to my own accent and pronunciation, all of that can be accredited to meeting with native speakers. And I know that not many people have this option available to them, but it was something, like I said at the very beginning, like I have no idea why I had so many good teachers. Like the same way I don't know why there were so many Americans in my little town, which is crazy to me. But I was able to meet them and listen to them and speak to them. But even before I had classes with native speakers, I was just listening to a lot of native material, like native input, like American TV shows or American music, which I think many people do when they learn a foreign language. They immerse themselves in the culture, so they listen to the music, they watch the films, they watch the TV shows, but they don't actively practice their pronunciation if they want to sound native-like, or if they just want to practice their pronunciation, which I think can be improved by just saying things out loud all the time, like trying to mimic and imitate the sounds. One of the techniques that I use whenever I learn something in French is to always say it out loud. And whenever I listen to something and this word comes up, I always pause and I just try to say this in the exact same way that the French person said it. And I did the same with English, and I sometimes still, like, I learn Spanish, but it's not my priority at the moment, but I do that. And sometimes when I listen to music or I hear something in Spanish, I try to pronounce it in the exact same way. And I'm not perfect. It doesn't always come out perfectly. But I think that focusing on just trying to sound as native-like as possible, or just trying to sound as correct as possible, can be a good way to practice. Because how else can you improve your pronunciation if not by speaking? So you can always try to say things to yourself, speak to yourself, and then whenever you can, just practice on the particular words or sentences or phrases or exclamations that have different intonation patterns, and just just have fun with it. See how you feel when you do that. And yeah, that's my biggest tip, I think, for pronunciation.
For sure. The having fun part is so important. It's not, so that it wouldn't be laborious. Just when people are learning to speak as well, then I just recommend this so often, that just, if you're learning Italian, just do the whole thing, just just like with your face and your mouth, and just go with it. Just like it's a farce in a way, that you just go into the whole stereotype of non ci sono di Perugia. It's just like you go all in, and it's so fun. It becomes a game. and at the same time you're just picking up the whole new pronunciation as well. Because like for a Finnish person, speaking like an Italian wouldn't be a natural thing. So they need to go into these lengths of playing this role until they will get it to be a natural thing, right?
Yes, and something that you also mentioned before, that when we speak a different language, like our facial expressions change. I think you also notice this, that when you speak a foreign language, your voice changes.
Yep.
Sometimes when I speak Polish, like I feel like my voice is a bit higher. It's like it's a different voice. But when I speak with my American accent, I speak from the chest. And many different languages have different like vocal placements, like wherever your voice resonates. So sometimes you can hear that when, for instance, Spanish people speak, their voices to me are so low, like they are so like low registers of their voices. And I whenever I try to speak Spanish, I need to like kind of go even lower and try to speak faster. Of course I can't, but I'm trying just to, as you said, like go over the top and just have fun with it. And yeah, this is something that can really boost your progress, because even embodying the features that are not related to the language itself can really help you feel it out and just help you make progress even without you even knowing it.
That's a very cool topic, by the way. That there is very exciting research about this that we've been doing and we've been reading about as well. Is that languages have different frequencies, so that the brain would be able to distinguish them better, to know where to send them in the neural networks. So basically it's like wow. That's why you are feeling as well that I'm speaking on a different from a different place, but that's a whole another story. But it's that's super exciting. Let's go into motivation as well. You seem to be a very motivated person in general, but and I'm as well. But motivation is it's not a thing that just comes from thin air, right? It's usually based on habits and stuff like that, right?
Yes, that's
so
true.
How do you motivate yourself?
Well, looking back at at everything that happened last year with the pandemic, I wasn't really motivated to learn anything, and I allowed myself to do that. And I think it's also important not to force yourself in such difficult times. But now I think I'm starting to rebuild my routine, and I'm finding new ways to learn after the pandemic, because it really affected the way I was motivated about like anything in real life, which I think many people can relate to. But the number one thing, as you said, like habits, building habits, and just having these habit triggers around your house, or maybe at different times during your day when you are just triggered by something, whether that's like learning after lunch or practicing before bed or something. Just having these triggers that stimulate your brain many times, so that you know that, oh my god, this is the time in which I should be doing some practice, like I should be speaking to myself right now, so I'm going to do that. This is something that I did when I was studying English at university. Every time I was cooking myself lunch, even in between classes, I would go home, I would cook myself lunch, and I was pretending to give lectures and speeches in English, and I was just practicing my speaking skills as much as I could, and I did it every single day during lunch when I was cooking lunch, and that was amazing for me, and and I think it worked out well.
Sounds so cool. Such a cool thing to do.
Yeah. So I always like say to everyone, speak to yourself, talk to yourself, pretend you're like a motivational speaker or a university professor or a YouTuber sometimes, and just say things that you want to say in a foreign language. But like habits and having these habit triggers and building them consciously. As you know, I think it takes either like 21 or 30 days to build a habit. So just sticking with it for 21 or 30 days and seeing where it takes you. But that wouldn't be complete with the second most important thing, which is rewarding yourself. I wouldn't be able to learn as many languages if there wasn't some kind of reward for me. And for me, a reward would be like I said before, like talking to someone or traveling. I hope that comes back soon. And speaking to the people who live in the country. But that could be as simple as buying something like sweet. Like maybe you have a sweet tooth and you want to buy yourself some chocolate after a 1 week session, like you did everything that you wanted to do in a week and you have a reward coming. Or maybe that could be something monthly or every 2 months, like whatever your system is, you can always look forward to something which can motivate you even when you don't feel like learning. So even when you have this trigger and it triggers you and you're like, oh, okay, so this is my time to learn, but I don't feel like it. Then you can ask yourself, but do I want this reward? Like being really honest with yourself. Like, do I want this? Yes, I do. Okay, so do I want to stay where I'm at right now? Or do I want to just take one little step towards it and then just going further and further and further? And yeah, habits, rewards, and just finding something, like, to me, like giving speeches, like let's say, was something that I loved, and I wouldn't tell everyone to pretend that they are teaching something at university, which was my dream career at some point. But I think that if people just chose to do something that would be enjoyable to them, like pretending that they are, I don't know, talking in French to their kids or something, or pretending that they are talking to their kids when they are not there, and just trying to practice in any way that is enjoyable to them, I think that can help people motivate themselves so much. I looked forward to my lunch speeches every single day.
So what did you speak about? What did you teach humankind in those speeches?
Well, like, I was studying English, and I was taking many specializations. Like, I wanted to be a translator, and I wanted to be a teacher, and I wanted to be a linguist. And so I practiced teaching the things that I already was learning about. So if I came from a translation theory lecture, I would come home and I would revise the material by just giving a speech about it or a lecture about it. So that was my way of practicing, because I wanted to become a university professor as well. So I thought that it would be like two birds with one stone, and just, practicing actually teaching and speaking skills as well.
Yeah, that's what I usually recommend as well to people, is that just take a moment, just a cup of coffee, and think of a sentence you would like to say, or you said in a previous conversation or whatever. Your mom called. What did she ask? Can you say this in Italian? Right? So it's having fun like that. So what are your goals with languages? Obviously, what people ask me usually is that, how do you keep the languages up on the same level? And what I usually say is that, it's a Darwinistic system. If you don't use something like muscles, then they will just go away. They will get smaller, right? So you need to kind of keep it up. But at the same time, there is a funny thought experiment that who is doing things more rationally in their life? Either a person who needs to use two languages, like, I don't know, English and Russian, and they do it on a solid level, and people or a person who kind of knows 14 languages and don't use them. Well, from a Darwinistic point of view, the second would be quite a weird situation. But obviously, such language lovers exist as well. Like myself, obviously, I don't speak all those languages on a daily basis that I know, but I really enjoy them being a part of my identity. Probably have the same thing. Or what are your goals with languages?
Right now, I would like to get to the advanced level with French.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on it because I think I am, even though I allow myself to make mistakes and I make slow but steady progress, I think I am still quite perfectionistic in a way, because I really want to master one language before I move on to the next one. So that's why I learned Spanish on the side, because I just want to focus on French mostly, while I'm still maintaining my English and my Polish as well, because I still use it every single day. But with French, I really want to become advanced, so that when I go to France, because France has a special place in my heart. Like, I traveled there so many times when I was a child, and I just want to connect with the people there. And that would be my main goal in life right now. But then I hope that one day I will achieve that level in French. And then I want to move on to Spanish, mastering it and traveling the world and just going to all of these Spanish-speaking countries and speaking with people and dancing and singing Spanish songs. Like, I love Latino music. So that would be so cool for me to just speak Spanish as well. And then I have such a huge list of languages that I would like to learn that I have no idea how to get through all of them. But I really would like to go back to these languages that I started picking up as a child, like Italian and Czech. I picked up Italian just because we were traveling there, but I can't speak it, and I would really love to. And Czech again, as a Polish person, I think that speaking Czech could be the nicest thing to do when you travel to Czechia. And yeah, I don't have any other language goals. Like, I'm focusing on one thing, and then after, at some point, I'm like, okay, maintaining it, on to the next one, and then on to the next one.
So people have busy lives usually, right? So we all do. So if a person only has 10 minutes per day, somebody watching and listening, what would be your kind of breakdown of what this person should do to really help? Obviously, it depends on the level as well, a little bit, but what they should do to really help their language skills? Like 10 minutes. That's the
10
max.
minutes a day. Okay. So I will assume that this person just wants something fast and doesn't know where to start and doesn't want to create a plan, just wants something ready-made. I think that immersing yourself in native input, like listening to maybe a podcast or just watching YouTube, but I think that it's not easy to find YouTubers from foreign countries. I know that it's very, very difficult. So I think I would say like trying out a learning app would be amazing because, for example, with Speakly, something that I love about Speakly is that it is like all language learning apps, I think, are organized and they have this kind of their own curriculum or method that they follow. But for 10 minutes, I think that when you go to Speakly, like I'm talking to you, but I'm not biased at all. But no, really, when I open Speakly and I like something that I started doing so much more is the listening exercises. Like I said, I think in my video, that just listening as much as you can and then just being like, okay, I listened, and understanding that it is something that also boosts your progress even though you can't see it right away. And then for, I don't know, the remaining 3 or 4 minutes, just doing some structured practice. I think that would be amazing because without being surrounded by the language, like the only reason why I'm so good at English is because I surrounded myself with the language so much. With French, not so much, so that's why I'm not advanced yet. Yeah. But when it comes to having like such a limited time for a session, just listening and then doing some exercises just for 10 minutes can really make a lot of difference, especially if you do it daily and consistently. Wow, you cannot beat that.
Exactly. You're just so much on point with that, because you know that shows the usual difference between a person who maybe isn't successful in learning a language and then you and me and others who are kind of maybe approaching this in a more conscious manner, is that it might sound logical that I have to get bunch of new words, just learn them separately, and then I will do stuff like listening and stuff like that. But actually, polyglots like us, we know that actually this listening and the immersion into the environment comes first. That's first, like in real life, right? So that's first. It's just like biologically, it just comes first. And then after that, if you have all this input in you, then already, the wheels are turning, right? So as you know, the whole thing is already working for you, the brain and the body and everything. And then you go and maybe study 5 words. I totally agree with you that.
Yes, I used to be this person who was just chasing progress when I was learning French on my own in between my university programs. When I had a break between my BA French course and MA French course, I had a year of a break, and I was doing using one app that was only based on like daily progress, maintaining the streak and learning as many words and practicing as many grammar structures as you could. But the words were weird and the sentences were weird, and there was no way to practice listening. There were no listening exercises. They were just asking me constantly, like, translate this, translate that. And in real life, you don't go and you don't speak a language just translating things. Sometimes you say something that you have no idea where it came from because it just came up. Like, you're like, oh, I remembered this word. Like, I remembered how to say that. And that won't happen unless you store it somehow and somewhere in your brain, and you can do so by listening a lot.
Totally.
A lot.
I couldn't agree more. So it's first, everybody watching, listening, literally, if you're using an app like Speakly or anything else, literally start with the listening practice. That's the whole, and it needs to be daily as well, because then your brain will understand that, oh, this is the environment I need to cope now. This
is something that is amazing about the listening practice, because sometimes we get discouraged when it comes to daily practice. Like, oh my God, I have to do it again today and again tomorrow. Like, oh my God, I need a break. with the listening exercises, all you have to do is press play and just let it play and just listen to it somewhere in the background. And that is still helping you out so much.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important to note that what research shows is that listening consciously, so that I'm listening what I'm hearing or it playing in the background, for the brain, it has very little difference actually, based on what we can see based on research. So it kind of, you even take, you even give away the responsibility that, is it me listening or is it my brain listening? You know what I mean?
Yes. And then you just have a conversation one day and you use a word and you're like, oh, I guess I remembered something.
Yeah, for sure. I had a story from one user who wrote to me a few weeks back, or it was a month back or something. He was saying that he was learning Italian with Speakly and listening to listening exercises on a daily basis. And then he was in a swimming pool, like a spa, center. And he just noticed a Italian couple, and he was like, "Wow!" He just had this whole pressure of having conversation with them, and then he said that he was just there, just relaxing, and the first sentence that came about to his head was something that he had subconsciously heard from a listening exercise, which was "Questa zuppa è troppo salata, non la posso mangiare," which means this soup is too salty, I can't eat it. And so he decided that, I will go with it, and he went and said this as an icebreaker, and it went very well. So this is a nice example how sentences stick to us, without
and
us
the
being
melody of the language.
Exactly. That's cool. So let's talk about your own language learning routine as well. Like, how do you go about this? You said that you're picking up your French and you're focusing on French learning. So what do you do?
Okay, so what I'm going to say is, again, like my nerdy linguistic brain speaking, because I have this analytical brain and I just enjoy like filling out some grammar exercises and learning all the grammar forms. So right now I am still looking for the perfect grammar book for me, which is going to be just my relaxation technique and learning at the same time.
It's like a drawing book that you can use for just mindfulness meditation.
Yes, people sometimes do the coloring books. I do grammar exercises. Yeah, so this is, I actually need to order one for myself. But when it comes to my routine, I think that works for me is following French influencers. So I am on YouTube. I also do things on Instagram, and I watch French YouTubers and I follow them on Instagram and I listen to their Instagram stories. So this is my daily practice that I do anyway. So I don't even feel like learning because I don't feel like I'm learning because I would be on Instagram anyway. So when I'm scrolling and just forwarding the stories and I listen to someone's French, that is my daily French dose, even when I'm not learning at all, not doing anything else. But then I always also use Speakly when I want to practice my speaking skills because, again, I was never encouraged to speak French. And even though this is something that I really want to do, sometimes I struggle because I had this terrible French teacher that just really traumatized me, and I never really recovered, and I'm still recovering from it. So whenever I'm doing something intentionally, I just go and do some Speakly practice because I love the fact that I can just practice my pronunciation and then try to say something, and it always corrects me. I don't know how you do it, but you always correct me when it comes to this app. Always corrects my pronunciation, and I know that my pronunciation isn't perfect, but I'm sometimes is it me or is it the app? I don't know. Okay, I'll say it again. And it just makes me happy that I can practice again because I know I need to focus on it. And then I think that's it. My daily routine consists of definitely listening a lot. And then when I want to do something, before my grammar book arrives, I do some structured practice. And that's it. I don't do anything online. I don't do any online vocabulary exercises. I used to because I also talk about learning languages on my YouTube channel, so sometimes I recommend a few apps here and there, but whenever I do them, they only focus on vocabulary. At least this is my opinion. And sometimes if there is a speaking app, it takes you 30 minutes to go through one session, and I hate that. Sometimes I don't have 30 minutes. So whenever I want to do some vocabulary practice, I therefore follow a Polish French teacher, so he is Polish, but he teaches French in Polish, which is helpful because even though I like learning in English, I also like learning in my native language as well. But then whenever there is just like a need for like, okay, I really need to do something today, or I really want to do something for myself today, then I'm going to Speakly because this is my, like, I currently, like, ever since I started using it, I truly love it. And I actually got a notification like 2 seconds ago that I need to practice.
I just sent it. I just sent it personally. Like, by the way, Speakly users, many think that I'm personally sending those things, and then it's just like, oh, I just got a message from you. My aunt.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, my aunt is sending me a message that, oh, you just texted me. Yeah, for sure. That's the thing that I'm noticing as well about people who are very successful in learning languages, is that it's easier than it seems, right? It's so easy. It's just like you create the environment with something like, influencers videos or stories, just to make it more natural to you, or speak listening exercises, and then learning like 5 words per day just to have a little, if you're a beginner, just have a little thing going on, just to lay the foundation as well. And it's like, it just works. It's easier.
Yeah,
it's
and
nothing
for
like,
me,
it's not like rocket science. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, this is the best thing that I can just practice speaking, because I've been learning French for 10 years, but it's been on and off. So it was once going really, really well, and then nothing. And then I had a very bad teacher, and then nothing. And then on my own, and then nothing. And I kind of know many things, but I just need to practice. And I just, as you said, like, I need to create this environment for myself that works for me. And I don't view learning languages or studying languages in the like traditional way where you have your notebook and you have to sit at a desk and you have to rewrite sentences and then open a book and do some reading comprehension exercises. I think that like everything has its own place.
Yeah.
But for a regular person who just wants to learn, it is all about having fun with it and making it so that it works for you, like the process works for you and you work for the process. And just finding some resources that are truly helpful, and that's it. You're set.
So just to finish the podcast, let's go through some questions about you yourself, and maybe languages as well.
Okay.
So the first question: if you had to choose out of these languages that you speak and understand, one language that you need to speak until the rest of your life, and you can't speak and learn any other languages, what would it be?
Including my mother tongue?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay, English. I'm sorry.
So it's just like, so this is a pragmatic selection.
Not only pragmatic, but I love this language. It is part of me. I like, it's either Polish or English, and I chose English. Can
you recommend something inspiring to everybody watching, listening, that you have either watched or listened or read lately, or ever in your lifetime, that you recommend people to watch or listen or whatever? The first thing that comes to mind is The Last Lecture by Randy Pouch, I think. It's on YouTube, you can listen to it, and it's just all about making the most of your life before you die. And this is my motto and my life philosophy. Like, I do the things that I want to do before I die because I know I will die anyway, so I might as well do something fun. Exactly. Let's end with a high note, everybody. We have some news, Laura, to you. You will die. Yes. So remember. It's a very stoicist point of view, by the way, the memento mori thing, that you just get up in the morning and you will have just a conscious, it just kind of like sets the boundaries of how will I respect others and myself and stuff like that, right? So you seem to be a very thoughtful person like this. Do you have a main idea or something, or an ism or something that you follow as a person? Yes, like I listened to this lecture a few years ago, but I learned about this concept when I was 15. So when I was 15, I literally created my last day, like the perfect vision of my last day on earth, really. And like I said, like, what do you want to do before you die? Like, I ask myself this question whenever I plan something, like, okay, so in my life, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? And I already have like a vision for myself where I want to go, but then each and every day I'm like, okay,
that could be my last day. So am I going to be like enjoying it? Or of course, like I'm a human, so I also like have my bad days, and I'm like, oh my god, this is not going to be my last day because I'm sad or something. But no, I just make the most out of each and every day. So carpe diem, memento mori, if you want to put it in
Cool.
in Latin, definitely.
So what has been the most difficult language that you've ever learned?
Russian.
Why is
For
that?
sure.
Why is why is that?
I stopped learning Russian because the moment I discovered that they have declensions, I stopped. Like I was like, it was in middle school, so we were practicing our declensions in Polish as well, and our Polish teacher was also our Russian teacher, and I was like, if I have to go through the same things again with Russian, I'm done. Like I want to focus on something else. Like I couldn't. Of course, I love this language, but it's just so difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I understand Russian as well. I don't speak it, but for sure it's difficult as well. I went to one podcast a few weeks ago where the show host asked me a question that really struck me. That kind of I've thought about this for a few weeks now, just on and off, and I thought to ask this in this meeting as well,
Okay.
in this podcast as well. And this question is: if you could give your 10-year-old self an advice about anything, just about anything, what would you say?
Oh wow. Okay. 10-year-old Laura. I would tell her that she is more powerful than she could ever imagine, and that she should and will always go after her dreams. Like whenever she doubts herself or thinks that something is impossible because her parents say so, or her teachers say so, or someone is just mean to her, like forget it. You know what to do, you know what you want, just keep going. You're so strong and so brave.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Laura. We can wrap up
Thank you so much.
the podcast as well.
It was
Thank you
so
for
much
coming.
fun.
Thank you for coming, and I think it was really inspiring to everybody. Seeing that people who speak many languages, they're not made up. They are not mythical. They're not mythical beings. They just have.
We are human.
We are human. Exactly. That's the message. I think this is going to be the title of the podcast. We are human.
Yeah,
we have
we are,
feelings.
yeah.
So it's just we have we don't have fear approaching the languages, and we just immerse ourselves, and everybody else can do this as well. I don't have any special skills or capacities that other people don't have. So it's literally just just everybody can do it. So thank you,
Yeah.
Laura.